Heather Dell, and joining us as always, co-host. Yeah, just say co-host. You gonna come back? You gonna keep coming back? Or?
Oh, I'll be your co-host.
Okay, good. Because I don't want to tiptoe around that. So, Jay Taylor, myself, Heather Dell of Jay Taylor Associates. Motown Realty, real information about real estate for real people. Thanks to everyone who's been watching and listening and clicking and following. We appreciate it. As always, we love your questions. And don't forget, you can call in between 4 and 5 while we're on the show at 313-355-6018. So today, well, first of all, Jay, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to put anybody who calls in on the spot a little bit too, so you can think about it. Or maybe someone out there has a good memory. Life is a house. Your best Christmas memory as it relates to the house. If you were living in a cabin, a tent, a yurt, a teepee, an igloo. So somehow the idea of hearth and home, because this is the one time, well, particularly this time of year, we think about home. And I think home now is even more critical with pandemic and economic issues and the way things always are. So home, we don't just sell houses, we sell homes. You know, when our clients buy properties and fix them up and rent them out multifamily, they're not just making money. It's great to make money, but they're also providing homes. So I want to hear about one of your Christmas memories about home at the end of the show.
Oh, wait, not now?
Well, if you want to go now, that's fine.
Right now.
You want to do it right now?
Right now.
Right now?
Well,
It's either that or the hot pick, whatever you want.
All right, so this hot pick comes to you from, no, it's actually not a hot pick. This is about my favorite hearth and home memory. And it's interesting, I hadn't yet thought about our homes, the real estate with which we reside, being an extension of our feng shui, an extension of our qi, an extension of our divine being.
Oh, you're so existential.
Oh, I'm so existential right now.
I know, but you're a religious man. It's okay.
But the comedy is that I had never thought of that before, that our homes are in fact an extension of our own sanity, our own reality, our own existential presence. And so my weirdest memory that might relate with Christmas is when I was in a home that we had bought up in Traverse City, Michigan. It was this tri-level, quad-level, like the most undesirable architecture.
Right, like 4 sets of steps 4 times.
Yeah, like you cannot get to a single different room without using a staircase. We owned one of these homes, but the benefit is it has 3 decks. It has 3 ways to go from the inside of your home to the outside of your home. And it did overlook this beautiful 3/4 acre parcel in Traverse City with bay views. It was a great home to live in. But I remember at the time he was 2, my oldest son was playing in the fire, as I let my 2-year-olds do. And
You're such a cool dad.
He got a stick that was hot and flaming and smoking, and he started shaking it and getting terrified.
Oh, God.
And at one point, I walk over and say, you cannot do that. I take the stick out of his hands and set it down, and I walk away. Well, he gets back in the fire while I'm not looking, and then proceeds to throw coals all over my living room, landing on the carpet and getting really dark black.
Singed?
Full-on flames.
So your fond memory of hearth and home
is nearly destroying my heart.
When your son almost burned the house down?
I didn't say it was my favorite memory. I said it was my
quirkiest,
weirdest memory.
That is true, though. That's why, and always as a reminder, the daughter of a firefighter, I got to put it out there. Remember, if you have real Christmas trees, lots and lots of water, don't leave them plugged in.
Oh, my word. Think about a person who has a real live Christmas tree in their home and also burns natural fires in their fireplace.
Or smokes.
I mean, you're just asking for a full fire claim.
Yeah. I know it sounds melodramatic, but I'm telling you, daughter of a firefighter in Detroit, you'd be shocked. And nothing is sadder than a fire at Christmas time.
I did not know that you were a daughter of a firefighter.
My dad was
Which ladder?
He retired ladder 17. Okay. I still have his helmet.
That's incredible. What station is that? Where is that located?
It's actually over on West Chicago.
West Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay. So several of my clients are firefighters. There's this really unique, we'll call it brotherhood,
Oh, yeah.
of firefighters, that they love each other, they fight for each other, they will defend each other to the final hour. But what I love about them is they all seem to have a side hustle in real estate.
Well, or the trades.
Sure, yeah,
My
yeah,
dad
like
was
a
skilled. He was a
firefighter who's a really
carpenter.
good carpenter, or a firefighter who's a really
Right.
good plumber.
Because
or-
you're 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, 3 days off.
Yeah, what do you do with those 3 days?
And also, the money and being a firefighter is really stable. It's great, but it's not a ton of money. So having someone on the side is something on the side is kind of essential if you've got a couple kids. So no, my dad was a firefighter. He was a battalion director. He was a chief. He worked. When he first went on the job, he graduated from the fire academy about 4 weeks before the riots broke out.
Wow.
Or the rebellion. Everyone has a different. Historically, I think it's more known as the riots. Yeah. So, yeah, my mom was a young. She was a young wife, and there was a curfew, and her and my aunt and my grandma, and he left, and my aunt was married to a firefighter too, and the two guys left and didn't come home for 3 days.
Just fighting fires.
Just trying to keep the city from...
Keeping Detroit from burning down.
Yeah. Which, thank goodness, we've come full circle. We're on our way. I mean, we think about a little less than 6 years ago facing bankruptcy, looking at selling off the collection at the museum here and everything else. You're here, you're listening, we're here. Detroit is a great place. It's a great place to do real estate, live real estate, breathe, eat it. And today I wanted to, in my social justice kind of way, and it's a little mean-spirited because I want to go, I told you so, I told you so. Years ago we've had so much luxury housing built in urban areas in particular, and in the suburbs too. Very expensive apartments, very expensive condos. And I remember back in 2018, CNBC and Bloomberg, they did these articles and this research, and it was like this big, who knew, this huge aha that there is an acute crisis heading our way, that we have too much luxury housing and not enough mid-price housing. So here we are in 2020, almost 2021, and it is a full-on crisis, and it's not fortunate or unfortunate for either side, but this is a really good opportunity for people who aren't big developers or people who don't have access to a lot of capital to start up, to move into this market, establish yourself in this market, make money, and also provide the homes where the Christmas memories are made, right? So
wait, you're saying that the average Christmas memory does not happen in a multi-million-dollar luxury penthouse?
It does. I'm just saying that people who live in rentals that they don't like, or maybe everyone's stacked up like cordwood, and when you have your own home, don't you think, like, when we hear it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, you think of Christmas, the Christmas
Middle
tree?
America, right?
Yeah, okay, fine, whatever. Norman Rockwell.
Yeah, no, I love it. So I read an article a few years ago, and I've been watching this trend ever since, and that is the rapid increase of average square footage for the first-time home buyer.
Oh my gosh.
What used to be a first-time home buyer purchase was in the hundreds of square feet. And then after a while, 700, 800, 900 square feet was not enough for your first-time home buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And the first-time home buyer square footage increased into the thousands and then into the mid-thousands. We are now we're getting very close to 2,000 square feet as the average first-time home buyer square footage.
Starter home.
We're talking, people were buying 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalows in Ferndale as their starter home, and then slowly growing into a 3-bedroom and a 4-bedroom. And now, the first-time home buyer, it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, and their dog, say, hey, our first home, let's make it this 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath, 1,800 square foot home in Southfield. And it's just a change in priorities. And in fact, you're seeing at a disproportionate rate the 700 square foot bungalows being demolished, two of them side by side, to put up
tear down.
a Bigfoot home. And those Bigfoot homes are all 2,000 to 3,000 square feet.
The pencil houses that are built right to the setback.
Absolutely. You cannot get any closer.
And that's fine if that's your thing, but to this end, it's not sustainable. It's just not. We're going to run out of space. We're going to run out of people who can afford to live that way. So what better time to not just make money, make history, right?
That's right.
So now that we're facing this, now that everyone is finally understanding what a lot of us have known all along, that luxury is terribly overbuilt. And a lot of that is because new construction cost per square foot is very, very high. So it doesn't make sense for builders to, do new construction unless they know that they can sell it for X, Y, and Z. And so I'm saying, all right, so why build new construction when you can take a house that already exists and renovate it, right? It's always cheaper to buy an existing house than it is to do a from the ground up build.
Absolutely. You already have the, 3/4 of the work's been done for you. All you have to do is throw in the finishes.
Yeah. So in the Metro Detroit area, the median gross rent in 2019, the 2020 statistics I wasn't able to find from the Department of Numbers or U.S. Housing Bureau statistics, is $979. So $980 is the median rent in Metro Detroit.
Is everyone comfortable if I round that up to 1,000? It's $20 short of 1,000.
Yeah, well, I'm just Miss Facts and Miss Goody Two Shoes.
The record shows that we've all agreed.
According to the United States Census. So
the Bureau of Numbers.
I know, I'm dork. So $1,000 a month.
Thank you for rounding.
$1,000 a month for housing. Most people, your average person living in Detroit and the immediate Metro Detroit, is putting out more than 1/3 of their income for rent. And that's not just here, that's all over the country. The gap is widened. The subdivisions you see going up with the signs that say new housing starter homes in the low 400s. You see this all the time, right?
Yeah.
This is all it kind of it's not going to implode completely. I'm not trying to be, Debbie Downer, but it is so ripe right now to have rental properties, good rental properties, and to buy things and flip them. So I'm so excited because we have some guests calling in today who are local. They're clients who I bought their primary homes. I've bought and sold rental homes, and they're just regular guys who grew up here, went to Mumford, and they moved away like a lot of us did. They're both engineers and came back and working full time and juggling everything else. Said, hey, let's buy some houses, right? So they've taken this road, and it's been a really interesting road, and I'm really thankful that I've been along on some of this ride. So they're going to call in and talk to us about that. But so why not buy buildings that need reno?
So I think that's a huge opportunity for everyone. There are people who own properties that at this current moment need just a small amount of love. Mm-hmm. To be leveraged into much more valuable assets. But the problem is people don't usually live with a lot of margin. Mm-hmm. So the current owner might own this property and it only needs $25,000 of investment to be doubled in its value. $25,000 would leverage it to be doubled in its value, but they don't have $25,000 available. And so that is where you can show up, you can buy it for a reduced price. You can spend the $25,000 they don't have available, and then you're sitting on an asset that's been doubled in value for a small purchase price. That right there is the opportunity in multifamily. There are so many duplexes out there that are rented at under market value, and honestly, the tenants living in those are living in places that should not be sustainable for housing.
I know, it's almost third world.
The number of homes I've walked through in Detroit where the tenant is using the stove with all 5 burners on to heat their house,
or doing their dishes in the bathtub because there's no water in the kitchen.
Absolutely.
And they're paying their rent. They are paying their rent. A lot of these are just...
And the fact that a landlord is collecting rent and then providing that for a substandard housing, they need to be pulled out of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want to remind you, listen to Motown Realty with Jay Taylor. I'm Heather Dell on Wjzz Cool TV. Live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Periscope, Instagram, all of them. Everything I don't even know anymore because I'm finally getting too old.
What about MySpace? Are we on MySpace still?
Oh my God, is that still around?
No.
Wasn't that like in the early aughts?
Yeah.
Wasn't that like a 2003 or 2004?
Yeah.
Or was that Squarespace?
No, Squarespace still happens. Squarespace is how you build websites.
Okay, MySpace. Jay, you want to talk a little bit about your first? Investment property, or is that just a little too personal?
It's not too personal at all. I'd love to talk about my first investment property.
And Jay's successful, and he's got a fantastic family, and I just want you to know that it sometimes it looks like everything's worked out and everything's great, but there are so many rocky roads to every success story. Don't get discouraged. I mean, truly, life is just a game of attrition.
Sure.
You know, it really, truly is. So you're in Detroit, you want to buy something. So
Yeah.
you do what naturally everybody does.
You go to the land bank website.
Yep.
Yeah. No, and there's this appeal for the $1,000 house, and the land bank is the only place in Detroit where you can get the $1,000 house. For as little as $1,000, they will give you the deed to a property with the expectation that you will bring that property back into a rehabbed status. So, of course, what anyone would do with a $1,000 charge, I put it on a credit card.
Obviously.
And so my wife will forever refer to this property as the home we bought with a credit card. And I have those things. I bought an old Volkswagen Jetta on a credit card one time. And I've bought a house on a credit card. And I think I bought my wife's engagement ring on a credit card. Like, we put things on plastic.
I paid for a lot of my graduate degree on a credit card.
I don't think many people pay for homes on credit cards. But in Detroit, you can. And so this home on the land bank was a credit card purchase for as little as, I think I paid $1,300 when you included closing costs and everything. What they don't tell you is that you bought the home on warranty deed. False.
I'm gonna back you up there too, because I want viewers and listeners to understand. There's foreclosed properties, there's bank-owned properties, there's land bank properties. They're all pretty much the same but different.
Yeah, so when you buy a foreclosure property, you get a warranty deed from the bank. But when you buy a land bank property, you get a quick claim deed from the city.
Which is very, it's very thin.
It's very thin. It's not a deed at all. It's just a piece of paper that says...
I'm going to marry you, baby. I promise. One of these days I'm going to marry you. A warranty deed is a diamond ring and a date that you picked out.
Yeah, yeah. A quick claim deed is basically saying, we give you whatever ownership we pretend to have, but we've made no claims to the ownership that we have. As an example, I could walk up right now and offer a quick claim deed for anybody's home to anybody else.
Yep.
And they could pay me for it.
$1.
In this case, $1,300. And then that person thinks they own it until somebody who actually owns it walks up and says, hey, I actually own this. And so, in my history, I've seen people who had quick claim deeds that still had $30,000 loans stacked up against that deed. Mm-hmm. And so once they bought it for $1,000, had to pay off $30,000 to actually own it. And this is the sort of thing that happens all the time, but not in the land bank. The land bank is just it's an organization that's doing the best they can to deliver very distressed properties into people who want to rehab them. And my first property I bought on the land bank, bought it on a credit card, did all the investment, all the renovation on a Home Depot line of credit. And so at the end, about 6 months after buying it, I had about $40,000 of credit card debt and a fully rehabbed duplex, making me $1,600 a month.
Okay, all right.
So if you were to say, hey, for $40,000 I can make you $1,600 a month, you'd say, sure, let's do it. But because it's a quick claim deed from the city of Detroit, I couldn't sell it. I tried my darndest. I could not sell that property. So I ended up holding it for about 2 years, trying to clear the deed and get it into a position where I could then sell it. And by the end of my second year, I had watched my credit score with $46,000 of credit card debt slowly dwindle down to a 526. So here's a person who likes to keep his credit up in the 800s, sitting there holding a 526 credit score because I had held on to $46,000 of credit card debt to pay off this house. It was a mistake. but it's funny to look back and say
It was a teaching moment.
teachable moment, and nothing ventured, nothing gained. I ended up, if you look at the lens of history, I recovered my credit score within about 2 months of the sale of that property. I also, in the sale of it, probably cleared $30,000 of profit, and in the 2 years of ownership, made an additional $30,000 in rent. So it was not a bad investment. I actually look back and say that turned into one of the most profitable teaching moments of my life. Had I not been comfortable navigating all the risk and all the loss and all the pain and all of the credit score damage, it actually would have been a very devastating 2 years. But I walked out pretty happy.
Hey, this is Motown Realty. This is Heather and Heather Dell and Jay Taylor. Who's this?
Hey, this is LeVar McLeod.
LeVar, McLeod Property Brothers. How are you guys?
We're doing pretty good. How are you today?
I'm good. We were just talking about the crush, the crisis in luxury market housing and how it's going down, and all the things that we've all been talking about for years. That, you know, like where they would say there's too many. There's now they're saying there's too much luxury housing and not enough mid-priced housing. And then to that I would say, yeah, and rain is wet. But yeah, so now we have this huge problem, and I'm saying, like, Jay and I are talking, we're saying, well, you know, you can make money and also do good things. We were talking about good landlords, good property owners. I immediately thought about you guys, and how I would love for you to share a little bit about how you started out, like your very first experience. Like Jay just got done telling us how he bought his first land bank house on a credit card. And I don't want people to get discouraged out there. I want people to be interested in this, you know, both from buying for themselves as an owner-occupant and also as a rental. But it's never been a better time to capture the middle market with the average rents in Metro Detroit at $1,000 a month. So how did you get started? You have some good stories, some funny stories, something anecdotal?
Yeah, well, you want to talk about land bank specifically? I got land bank stories. I got auction stories.
So if someone came to you and said, I'm going to buy, people come to me and they go, I want to buy a land bank property. Do you think that's a good idea? I don't know, LeVar, is that a good idea?
I would say why. That would be my first question. Actually, I had a friend. Serious. I had a friend call me about 3 months ago. She's from Detroit, born and raised, very familiar with the condition of the city and all those things that are happening. She lives in Kansas now, and she said, "I want to buy
Kansas.
Literally, I want to buy land." Huh? Yeah, Kansas City, Kansas.
Wow.
Yep. And she said, "You know, I want to invest back in the city. You know, I have my career going for me. I want to buy a land bank house. I want to do a full renovation. You know, I want to, you know, design it, et cetera, et cetera." And I literally said, "Why?" You know, the cost, basically for me, the cost to do that, there are homes on the market you can buy, especially if you're not looking at an owner occupant. So this young lady, she was like, "Oh, I want to put my personal touch." And I think a lot of people get caught up in the show of real estate investing because it's so trendy, and you see it on Instagram, YouTube,
Design on a dime.
everywhere. and I've told several friends, I said, "Do you want to? I mean, are you investing in real estate to be able to post pictures and say, 'Look at this, you know, super nice house I renovated,' or are you in real estate or trying to get in real estate to make money?" And a lot of them kind of pause right there. Well, I don't want to, you know, create a property that, you know, I wouldn't want to live in or things of that nature. And I said, I'm not saying that by far, you know, but you got to look at when you're buying a land bank crib, a land bank property for $1,000 or, you know, a couple $1,000. Most of the inventory that they still have on the market today, it's going to probably take you $30,000 to $50,000 to have it operational, right?
Yeah, that inventory, the inventory is starting to shrink a little bit, and it is pretty tough. People call me from all over, and they say, "I want to pay $8,000 cash for a house," and I want to put 20 into it, and I want to sell it for 150. And I say to them, yeah,
you know,
Don't we all?
and I say, well, I've got some swampland in Florida. If you want to buy that, yeah.
Well, and LeVar, you brought up a good point, and that is a lot of people want to put their own personal touch or they want to do their own thing. But the truth is, I think the biggest driver, and this is what brought me to the land bank for my first purchase, was I didn't actually have $45,000 to spend at once. You know, I had,
right.
you think you can just chunk away at it. Like, well, this month I have 5,000 and next month I'll have a couple more grand. And the next month, hey, and I'll use my sweat equity. And so like,
call in favors from all my friends.
yeah, you have this idealistic idea that like I can spend a couple grand a month, and at the end of a year I will have spent my 48,000, and then I won't have to have saved it up all at once. What they don't realize is that all the time they wasted and all the headache and all the setbacks, if they had just used that year to save that money, and they were sitting on 48,000, how much more they could do with 48,000 all at once.
Oh yeah, and even right now, I mean, so of course over the last 4 or 5 years that the city has been doing land bank properties, the financing market has changed, right? So I mean, you can get financing in Detroit right now for a $30,000 or maybe a $40,000, $50,000 loan for a house. So like I said, if you're doing owner occupant, I would, unless you just really have the skill set and a network of contractors, because you got to think about it, all the work still has to be licensed and insured contractors. So, and it has to be city permit, city inspected. So there are some things that you can't just go in there like, you know, Uncle Bob is going to do all the electrical and it's going to be okay. No, not necessarily, right? You still have to, the whole goal is to get everything up to code. That's why you have to get all the city inspections and things like that. So if you're in specifically the Detroit market, there are banks that'll loan you $50,000 to go buy you a house as an owner occupant fairly easily. And, you know, it doesn't take a big, you know, high paying job to qualify for a $50,000 mortgage in most cases. So again, I'm not telling people not to do it. I actually purchased a land bank home, I think in 2016, and we were using it as a temporary owner occupant, and then ultimately it was going to be an investment property. But we ended up turning it back over to the land bank because we had so many other opportunities that were presented that our money was best spent investing into some other deals and some other renovation projects. And so that one kind of got put on the back burner, and ultimately we turned it back over. Now, I will say the land bank, they will work with you. We had it for probably about a year. It was in the Russell Woods area, so that's considered historic district. So they give you 12 months instead of 6-month renovations. But either way, they will kind of work with you if you're showing steady, some type of consistent progress on the rehab.
LeVar, I want to just take real quick, say thanks so much for calling Motown Realty. This is Wjzz Cool TV. I'm Heather Dell with Jay Taylor. When you quote unquote surrender that property back, tell our viewers and our listeners like how that works, because I think there's this idea or this concern that if you do that, your credit is ruined for 5 years or this or this or this, and I don't want people to be so afraid of having to take that route, like you were saying, when they work with you. What kind of experience did you have?
So when you get the land bank property, the city of Detroit or the Detroit Land Bank Authority, however they have it split up, they basically maintain a lien on your house until it's fully renovated or up to the standard where they will release the lien and they approve you, which basically means at the minimum all your utilities have to be on and the property has to be occupiable, the permits have to get signed off. So there is a process for that. If you don't do that in a timely fashion, they will start sending you letters, calls, emails. And like I said, some of the folks are, you know, trying to just get the property done. They don't necessarily want to take it from you because they have all this other stuff that they have to manage.
They want it to work out.
They want to get rid of the stuff. And so that's why I said they did start kind of having some fairs, if you will, where they had some of the small banking partners trying to look at funding opportunities to help purchasers, get the properties renovated, things of that nature. But then again, there are requirements to qualify. In the end, when we surrendered the property, it was a fairly simple process. Just sign the letter, and they specifically say, this does not, if you surrender it peacefully, so to speak, it doesn't prevent you from coming back later and buying another house through the land bank, and they're not holding anything against, nothing's going on your record, because this is a cash process, so there's no credit really involved at all.
It's a communication and making sure that you stay on top of things.
Now, I would say one more thing. The other part of this, depending on how long you're holding on to this property, you may become responsible for taxes and things like that as well. So that's something else to be mindful of. Additional carrying costs while you're holding this property or while you're going through the rehab process.
And I think a lot of people think that when the land bank sells you a property, the title is clear, and we all know that's not the case, right?
Correct. We actually we paid an additional. So they offer you the services, and we paid an additional, I think, $1,200 to $1,500. I don't remember the exact number, but around there, to do the quiet title process. And so they had a partnership with a title company and a lawyer or whatnot to do that for you, and it basically extended the purchase time frame out probably 4 to 6 months. So we actually won the auction on the house that we bought. Got all the paperwork, but it took 4 to 6 months for us actually to close and get the deed and everything from the land bank, because we did elect to do the quiet title. Another friend of mine actually just bought a land bank house, not too far from where I live, and she said it took probably this is pandemic year, so it probably took like 6 to 9 months for her to actually close after they won the auction on the property.
That's crazy. And speaking of
So
the pandemic year, I just a lot of the other thing that a lot of viewers and listeners have written in about is this real concern that and Jay, you can speak to this too as a landlord. This assumption that like people in Detroit just don't pay their rent, and I deal with so many people that have great tenants, and I know this year is really the exception. But how do you go about how do you find tenants for your properties? You have good communication. Do you generally find that if you just are transparent with them, you can work through the rent? And a lot of investors are very hesitant to buy a property simply because they just think that they'll never be able to get it rented, or if they get someone, they'll never pay their rent. And I don't find that to be true. And I think you guys have some pretty good tenants.
Are you asking me or are you asking LeVar?
I'm asking both of you.
So I will say I've won some and I've lost some. I have, one tenant that is currently 6 months behind in their rent, over $5,000 due. And there are other tenants that have never missed a single payment. And I'm sure they've sacrificed a lot to make that happen. And so, across the board, it's different. The ones who are currently super far behind came from the suburbs and moved into the city of Detroit and are taking advantage of loopholes. And
the pandemic too, and the eviction moratoriums, like I said,
all
this is a tough year.
If you're a smart tenant right now is the time to take advantage of your landlord. Meanwhile, the ones that are doing the best job of just keeping caught up as best they can and making half payments each month to make it work, they're the ones that are the real heroes right now, because they're all caught up right now.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to forget that not all landlords, or they're not all developers, or they're not all rich. Like a lot of this, you have a full-time career as an engineer, and then you do this as an additional your own business. But the trickle down, it's hard on local landlords too when people don't pay. But I guess my question, LeVar, you can answer this. If someone were to, thinking forward with things smoothing out with this pandemic and the economy, is that a reason enough? Is that fear reason enough to stop? Should it be to stop someone from buying a house, fixing it up, and renting it? Because I don't necessarily think that it should, but I'd love your feedback.
I don't think so. For about 2 years, I've been hearing people say we're about to go into another recession and things are going to crash and so on and so forth. And it hasn't stopped, me and my brother, my 5 brothers, from kind of doubling down, looking for bigger and better investments. We went going from single family, multi-families to looking at, now small apartment buildings and things of that nature. So, if you do your own research, I think everyone has to do their own research. I think if you're an out-of-state or out-of-town investor, then it's good to network and kind of get familiar with local people that know that market and know the neighborhoods and things like that where you're looking to invest and buy property. So I think that's the key. To the other part, we were talking about no, fear isn't stopping me. I would say do your research. It's the other part as best you can. And it's just like investing in anything else, though. Like Jay said, there will be wins, there will be losses. I've had to evict some tenants in the past that, left with, I think the highest was probably a $3,000 balance. But then I've had tenants that literally have not missed a payment in 50, almost 60 months.
Yeah.
Haven't even been late. So, I mean, when you get a tenant like that, it's like, I don't even want to raise their rent because they're so consistent. It's just, it works out so well.
I know what you're talking about. I had a tenant going into COVID had never missed a payment for 6 years straight. And so when COVID hit, I called him first and said, hey, if you need to skip a payment or 2 or 3, my bank has offered me the opportunity to skip a payment or 2 or 3. So 100%, like, I'm here for you. I'm like, I bent over backward to make sure that this tenant felt loved and appreciated and supported through this process. And sure enough, they skipped 2 payments. I asked my mortgage lender to skip 2 payments. And then they caught up, and I caught up with my bank, and everyone won. But like showing flexibility with those that give and take versus being really firm with those that try to take advantage of you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, one benefit that we have for the properties that we have right now, we don't have any mortgages. So, I mean, we have a little debt just from repairs and maintenance. We put 2 roofs on this year. During the pandemic year, we spent about $30,000 on roofs. We spent about $9,000 on HVAC systems this year, just kind of upgrading the properties that we currently own, upgrading the portfolio, if you will. And I guess we're kind of lucky. We have a mixture of tenants. We have one Section 8 tenant, so of course that rent comes on time. There are other challenges potentially, but the rent is there every month. We have a tenant who's kind of in retirement, and she has a nice pension and things like that. So she always has the money available. And then we kind of have a working family. And so the working family is the ones who've been here for 5-6 years and have been awesome. But yeah, over the years, we've had a little bit of turnover, but just kind of deal with it. Like I said, you try to work with people, be understanding. Everybody has things come up. We're like you were saying, we're not a corporate firm. We're not kicking everybody out on the 10th if they miss the rent payment. But sometimes you do have to file the paperwork at 36th District Court just to let them know.
Just to show a backbone, right?
Yeah, you got to have your processes in place. So having a lawyer, making sure your leases are good too. Real estate investors who are looking at it, making sure you have a really solid lease, and that if you need to evict a tenant, that you have the proper grounds to stand on when you go into court.
And a realtor can help you with a lease. Like, we have boilerplate leases. If you if you go through a realtor to find tenants, that's something we can help and guide you with. But you guys don't even have to. You don't even have to call me. I wish you would, but you don't have to call me to get tenants. How do you go about getting your tenants?
We're using we started using Zillow Rent Manager, and when you post your property for rent, it like posts to like 8 other subsidiary type sites like Redfin, and I don't even remember them all right now. It's been a while since we posted one.
Hotpads.com.
Hotpads, apartments.com.
Yep. So we started using that. We never posted a for rent sign in the window. We never posted a for rent sign in the yard. We always wanted to kind of look at tenants that were a little computer savvy, a little, that were actually looking and not just kind of drive by. Somebody who actually wanted to be in the property is kind of how we looked at it. Because then when it comes to setting up payments and stuff, they know how to use a computer. They know how to do some certain things that is going to make it easier on us in the long run. The Zillow thing has an integrated background check, so you can pay a little fee, and the tenant can actually pay the prospective tenant can pay the application fee and everything right through the Zillow app, and kind of does some of the background work for you. So it was worked out for us the last couple of times we've rented out.
And I think word of mouth is still a great way here. I mean, I get calls all the time from people looking for a place to rent, and then I call people. And, if you come from a referral, that's usually an easy way to get a place, too, with a good landlord.
Yeah, once people know your friends, Facebook, or your network, they will contact you, or they'll send friends your way for sure. And if you can work with them and they have the right, this is like the one thing people always say, you don't want to do business with family sometimes. So you have to be cognizant of that as well.
Well, you guys are the original Property Brothers.
We are and a good friend of mine, he rented out, he worked on his house, he bought it through the auction, got a really good deal, renovated it, and he rented it to one of his brother's close friends, and they never switched the utilities into their name. They paid the first 2 months rent, and they got behind for about 4 months. And so he really was like, man, he would have been better off just leaving the house empty, because he was actually spending money at this point, right? He's paying the utilities. He's not getting any rent, like I said, taxes, insurance. There are costs to the landlords, or, even, to maintain these properties, throughout the year. So people don't think about that. Like you said, a lot of people think, hey, they own property, they must be rich. Not necessarily.
It's easy to think that. That's what I mean, like when people don't pay their rent and stuff. But I do think it's easier to get good tenants in Detroit than a lot of people think, particularly ones that live out of state. There's a lot of negativity associated with Detroit, which is really unfortunate. So I just wanted your feedback on that, because you guys have had a pretty good run of properties. Do you have anything available now?
We do not. I've had 2. Maybe I should give you a call after this. I have had 2 folks recently. A friend of a relative of mine, actually, she wants to move from out of the suburbs closer to the city. So she wants something on the west side of Detroit, or the close, maybe Redford or Southfield, something like that.
Oh,
and,
okay.
So there are people always looking. One of the ladies who was kind of coordinating my work when I got the roof done, she ended up telling me she was looking for a place, and she was actually, I'm not giving out any personal information. I don't know the lady, but she was living in a trailer park, and she said the maintenance and the condition of the home, the trailer was way worse than what she had previously stayed in Detroit. So she was actually trying to get back into the city, and she was paying a pretty high price. She was paying over $900 a month.
Yeah.
Where she was at, and that shocked me actually. So there are folks looking constantly, for good houses. That's the key. Like I
Yep.
said, it doesn't have to have granite and quartz and stainless steel everywhere, but to have a nice, comfortable, good place to live, warm in the winter, things like that, fresh paint on the walls, things like the simple stuff goes a long way because you don't realize what the low end actually looks like for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm going to throw in a station ID. Have to do that. You listen to WJZZ Cool TV and watching the podcast. So I am going to give out a phone number and a website if someone has a property complaint with the city. And while I do that, I want you to come up with a good memory as it relates to one of the houses you grew up in Detroit. Christmas. Has to be Christmas or holidays, whatever holiday you would celebrate. We're thinking about hearth and home and not just selling houses, but providing support to communities and people and creating infrastructure in neighborhoods, that have had nothing but problems for many years. And so many of us have great memories growing up. I was telling Jay over on 17181 Asbury Park. I remember my mom put garland on the staircase, and I thought we were rich, and got me the Swiss Miss hot cocoa chalet made out of cardboard from cutting out all the UPC symbols. And I just remember that house. I remember putting a Christmas tree on the front porch. And so I'm going to, if you don't mind sharing a good childhood memory about Detroit property, I just want to let our listeners and our viewers know that if you do have a property complaint, you can call the city at 313-967-3669. Again, for a property complaint, 313-967-3669. You can also send an email to WCLB, like Wayne County Land Bank, inquiries at waynecounty.com. All right, so have you come up with it?
Sure. I got a story. I'll go with a Christmas story. It was just pretty funny. This just kind of shows you the dynamics of my family. So I grew up in the Bagley neighborhood. I grew up on Stokely Street, north of 6 Mile. And I remember one Christmas, of course, me and my brother, we're only a year apart, right? So we were kind of up together. We were up all night. My mom finally, made us go to sleep. So as soon as sun started peeking through the clouds, we jump up. And we always had a real tree in the living room and all that stuff. So we jump up, we run to the living room, and we start looking under the tree for our presents. And we noticed that all the presents that were under the tree were like for guests and other family members, the same stuff that was already there. Because my mom never put our gifts out until the night before Christmas. So we're like, what's going on? So we run to the back of the house to my mom's room, literally running, right? Run to the back of the house. What? Like she forgot to put our, you forgot to put our gifts out.
Santa didn't come.
And so she was so tired. She's like, oh, look behind the couch. And so we run back to the front of the house to the living room, and the couch was kind of set up patty corner, if you will. And so we jump over, and all the gifts stacked up, piled high behind the couch. And so we're throwing toys up in the air and stuff. So that was a pretty funny one right there.
Oh, I like that. Jay, any final thoughts or questions?
Well, we're wrapping up here
pretty soon, yeah.
But I would say this. I would say, talking to LeVar here, and I've met your brother Lance as well. I feel like you two have a unique approach to investment because you guys, you walk into a property, you can assess it really quickly, and then you guys, you spend capital when needed. So if a person was walking up to you right now and said, hey, I've got about $100,000 that I want to spend right now in the city of Detroit, where should I spend it? What should I be looking for? If you were to offer an intro 101 to Detroit investment, give me a few tips. Give our listener right now what to do with their first investment.
With $100,000 right now, I would definitely be looking at multifamily. A lot of people want to buy cash homes, and I would definitely be looking at, taking that $100,000 or a good portion of it, getting some additional getting 20% down on something, and going for a 6-unit, 8-unit property is possible, which we know for a fact there are some around the city.
It's hard to find though. Yeah.
Yeah, that are pretty good condition. So I mean, you have to get with a good real estate agent and seek out those type of properties. But I wouldn't, me personally at this point, I wouldn't go spend a whole $100,000 on one house unless you just knew you could get that return back instantly, or if you were planning to do a flip and you knew it was really undervalued. Like if you came upon something in University District for $100,000, you might want to grab it.
Yeah.
Buy that shit. Buy that shit. Buy that shit.
But if you plan on doing the long game, being a landlord, collecting rent over time, and building up an actual stream of income, that approach, I would definitely be looking for a small apartment building type property, and making sure, like I said, the property management in Detroit is I don't know what to really say about it. I lived in Texas for about 12 years before moving back here 5 years ago, and it was a totally different atmosphere with rental properties. I remember one place me and my brother rented for a year together, a house, a single family house. We never met anybody from the property management company, not a single person. Their systems that they had in place and the network of contractors and the trust that they had with their contractors was so tight that, if you said, hey, the AC is out, or, one time we came home for Memorial Day weekend, a pipe burst in the ceiling.
Ooh.
And so it flooded out one entire room, and it was running for a week. We were home for, the whole holiday, and they sent their plumber out, they sent their carpet guy out, they sent the painter, drywall guy, and they never stepped a foot on site. So I said, that was something that I haven't seen really replicated in the Detroit market as far as property management. Property management here is a lot more hands-on from what I've experienced. And, I think the good and bad with that. But as you start to upgrade the quality of tenants, the quality of renters that you have, then, I think a lot of things will fall into place. But, yeah, so that's one thing I want to add in.
Well, you have been a wealth of knowledge, thank you, and practical advice. We really appreciate it. So I want to wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas. And I'll be talking to you next week or this week.
Or as soon as this is over.
Or as soon as this is over, I'm going to give you a call. Yeah. Well, full disclosure, I work full disclosure. LeVar and his family business, they're clients of J. Taylor Associates. I work with them. And twice this week we've tried to go see something. And from the time that they send it to me to the time I go to showing time, it's gone. So it's still a really hot market right now if you're looking to sell a property. So, but yeah, I owe you guys.
I found another one today too.
Oh, send it over. I'll call you in a bit.
Get a room.
Right. Yeah,
Oh, stop. All right. Listen, thank you so much. Have a very Merry Christmas. And talk to you soon. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks. Happy holidays, guys.
You too. Okay. Bye.
So, Heather, I know that in all of the Detroit dealings, you find yourself in this fun play between, like, history that you understand because you were growing up and a part of a family that grew up in Detroit. But then when I met you, you were a suburbanite. Tell me about some of the interplay between living in the suburbs, living in Detroit, and the tension between the two.
Well, we only have 2 minutes.
Go.
I think the best thing a person from the city or a city person can do in the suburbs is to create awareness. I think that someone like me that has experienced both sides of it, you could do a lot of great, right? I live in Detroit now, and I have people come down and they are shocked at all the great things they see. So I think it's like everything else in America right now, the urban and the rural areas, we just got to get everybody together. And isn't that what Christmas is about? Happy holidays. Thanks for joining us. I think we're done. Are we done? Yeah, I think we're done.
Getting weird knocks on windows.
Getting
it says
knocks
I think
on
we're
windows.
out.
Yeah. Merry